Camp Food from Leipoldt's Cellar and Kitchen by C Louis Leipoldt, writing under the name of K A R Bonade, first published in Die Huisgenoot on the 29th of March 1946. If there's one kind of cooking we farm people understand, it's the art of preparing good food where we camp or outspan. It's actually an art that we Bonades should know well, but to tell you the genuine gospel truth, our family has somewhat lost the touch. In the old days, as my opa often told me, it was the custom to spend New Year's Day somewhere at the beach or on the veld. They would take a large tent wagon with a team of oxen, and Oma and the girls would collect provisions for days before the great outing. They would take 3 of the farm workers with them: Outa Doors, April, who was in charge of the oxen and had to look after them, carry wood, do odd jobs, clean fish, and on occasion look for bait for Opa in the rock crevices, and Twinkies, who had to assist Oma in making food for the men. I have a vague memory of one of these outings, but I was far too young to remember much. With the arrival of the motor car, the tent wagon made way for the lorry, and I really don't know why, we became more civilized, urban, refined, spoilt, I would say, and we seldom undertook anything more challenging or old-fashioned than a half-day's picnic somewhere on the farm. But old-fashioned camp life, as I later discovered it in the Transvaal at Dingaan's Day festivals in the Lowveld, was a revelation of what Boer women could achieve. I speak not of the kind of food we took along with us: brawn, sausage, bacon, cook sisters, buttermilk cake, sausages, pickles, pickled fish, and dried fruit. Those we still take along today when we Bonades go for a picnic in the motor car, along with all sorts of tinned food that are not to be frowned upon. What I'm talking about is the food prepared at the campsite, more or less fresh from the veld. There are, for instance, the meat dishes, the game or birds that the men shot would hang for a day or two. The exception was partridge and dikop that were immediately cleaned and put into an iron pot, along with bacon, salt, herbs, and a bit of farm wine to stew, with the fire below it and coals on the top, until it was time to eat. Prepared in this way, even an African koot is a delicacy. Hare was always served in the farm style. This, I believe, is a variation on one of the very oldest recipes, but it definitely differs from the jugged hare and the stewed hare recipes you find in the cookbooks. We always used to cook the hare in shreds, or rather braise it with onions, herbs, and a glass of wine, and done in this way, it was as tender and tasty as you could wish it to be. The game was always roasted in the iron pot, in more or less the same way as the fowl. In the Transvaal, I saw tannies bake in an anthill oven, but this did not appeal to me, and they also tended not to lard the meat properly. Our game is almost always too lean to eat without lard, and the more thoroughly it is larded, the better. Tame meat, whether mutton or pork, is, when it comes to camping, always at its best in the form of chops. To braai them properly, you need a hot fire made of leadwood or thorn tree in the Transvaal, and in the southern parts, any wood that makes good coals. Here in the Cape, we are privileged to be able to place a layer of rhinoceros bush over the coals, which imparts to the chops a particular fragrant taste. But this is a refinement lacking at most campsites. Instead, you can rub the meat with herbs according to taste. But choose your chops well and see to it that they are soft and tender. First give them a tap with a clean stone or a piece of wood. Not too hard, for you don't want to break the fibers. You should only bruise them a little to get rid of the stiffness. Salt them. A pinch of fine ginger in the salt is delicious, and some people are very fond of coriander or aniseed. Dry them well. A wet chop will never braai as well as it should. Then place them on the grill. If you haven't brought one along, you could make do with one improvised from ooms or wire fence, but it's generally preferable to take your own along. First grease the grill with some fat and make sure it's nice and hot before placing the meat on it. 3 or 4 chops can withstand the initial fire ordeal together, but look after them well and see to it that you turn them over as soon as they are well browned on the one side. When done, serve immediately with or without a lump of butter. If you have such civilized implements as knives and forks with you, a lump of butter is recommended. But a chop should really be eaten just as King Louis XIV enjoyed his, with your fingers. His Majesty did that at table, however, and not when out camping. His favourite, Tannie de Maitillon, found it so unbearably rude the way he always used to dirty his jacket, the one with the golden fleece on it nogal, with dripping fat, that she ordered the cook always to serve the king's chops with a piece of paper around the bone. That is how we came to have côtelette à la Maitillon, mutton chops with frumpled pieces of paper around the bone. The way they are usually served in hotels, there is, if the truth be told, not much difference between the meat and the paper when it comes to taste and juiciness. Therefore, see to it that your camp chops will not suffer any such reproach. They should have good flavour and be soft and tasty. It is no small matter to achieve all this with a grill, which is why some people prefer to braai them in a pan. I have nothing against that. A chop fried in a pan can be delicious, but it can also be the opposite. It all depends on the way it is braaied. A proper chop should retain all its juiciness, so the fire should be glowing hot to scorch the surface of the meat, which should then be quickly roasted right through. The result is a piece of juicy meat that almost melts in your mouth. What to eat with it? As far as I'm concerned, I can imagine nothing nicer than a piece of white farm bread, well plastered with farm butter, its inside just as soft as the meat should be, and with a beautiful golden brown crust into which your teeth, be they natural or false, can bite with relish. Vegetables and other additions? I know that camp hospitality ensures that these are always at hand, but I really consider them to be superfluous. A good slice of bread and a chop, they go together like husband and wife, and to separate them from each other is an affront and a sin.